Well, summer's upon us now. The weather is turning nicer, that's for sure. And school's just about out of session, but that doesn't mean that the Apple organization is stopping their work. They're very busy during this time of year. And once again, we're going to visit with the team from Addison Partners for Play, Learning, and Education. That's the Apple organization. With us once again is Mary Haley, the project director with Apple. Hi, Mary.
Hi,
glad to have you back. And
Thank
would you
you.
like to introduce the guests who we have joining us today?
I would love to. This is Janet Carlson with Bridge Communities.
Janet.
Hi,
Welcome.
John. Thank you so much.
Now, this is a relatively new partner, I understand. Is that right?
It is a brand new partner this year. We've just begun to explore how we can be working together going forward.
Okay. Well, Janet, let's find out about Bridge Communities. For those who have never heard of this agency, I understand it has some longstanding in DuPage County. Can you tell us a bit about Bridge Communities, their mission, and what your ultimate goal is in the DuPage County area?
Sure, absolutely. Well, our founders, Mark Milligan and Bob Walgren, were working in a church as part of their mission group in a homeless shelter. And in fact, it was 35 years ago already. And they became increasingly discouraged about the fact that they tended to see some of the same families coming back time after time, and that let them know that, you know, for some of these families, that their homeless situation was not improving. And specifically, there was this one 8-year-old girl that kept kind of sticking in their minds, and they said to each other, you know, this is just not right. This little girl should not be spending her childhood sleeping in this church on the floor, you know, in the basement next to these random people. And so they thought, well, you know, what can we do about homelessness? And they realized we can start with one family. And so Bridge Communities started with one family when Mark and Bob rented one apartment, and they acted as mentors for the family. And over the years, Bridge Communities has grown and grown, and now here we are, we're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. And we own not just one apartment, but 25 apartment buildings over 7 different communities across DuPage County. And we've been honored to serve 950 families who've come through our program. So our mission at Bridge is to help transition families from homelessness to self-sufficiency by providing and by working with partners in the community, which are traditionally faith-based groups or you know, community action groups, and they provide a wraparound of services alongside us where the families get an apartment, and then they also have supportive services, which those services include employment counseling, nutrition services, children's services, which is what I'm a part of, and even we have a donated car program. So we're able to provide transportation for the families.
Talk about the difference, if you would, Janet, of the late 1980s when Mark and Bob founded what became Bridge Communities to where we are today in terms of DuPage County. I mean, back in the late 80s, I can recall very clearly people talking about DuPage County as one of the most affluent counties in America.
Right.
And I mean, did we know about this situation in 1988? Was this that well known, and how have things changed in 35 years?
Well, certainly Mark Milligan would tell you that there was a homeless population then, but that at that point in time, still it was easier to find affordable housing, and a family could have, you know, a relatively modest income and still be able to afford a home for their family. And now there just really is such a lack of affordable housing that even sometimes for families who have just graduated from Bridge Communities, it can be a challenge for them to find housing in DuPage. But the issue has always been too that people are not always aware that there even are homeless people, that there's a large population of homeless people around them. And so that's part of Bridge's mission, is to make, you know, the general public aware that homeless people are all around you, and you, especially the families that we work with. Bridge works with families instead of just single adults. And so people especially are not necessarily aware that there are so many homeless families. There are about 2,000 children right now in DuPage County schools who fall under the designation of homeless. So it really is, it is a large number of folks who are out there.
Is that where the term invisible homeless comes from?
Definitely. Frequently when someone pictures, when you say the word homeless, many of us might picture a single adult, maybe standing on the side of the road, holding a sign, asking for help, or possibly someone, in downtown Chicago living literally on the street. However, the families who are homeless are frequently, as you said, more invisible, because homeless parents, like all parents, want to shield their children and protect them from the painful things, in life. And so many of the children in our program don't even realize they're homeless, although they might have been sleeping, on a friend or family's couch or the floor. Maybe they've been in a shelter for some period of time. And even many families who come to us have been living in their cars for some period of time. And the children just may not be aware that there is no other plan going forward. There's no permanent place to go because the parents are trying to protect their kids. So they're just not seen, they're more hidden from our view.
Right, and in those 35 or more years, the term of invisible homelessness has probably come to the forefront because we stigmatize, obviously, our society makes sure that we stigmatize something that we don't understand.
Right.
And we're afraid of it, and we're ignorant about it, and because we don't understand it, we're going to put it in a space, give it a label, and hope it goes away. And that was probably the attitude back then, but it sounds like now you're approaching this from more of a proactive, hands-on. The stigmatization is falling away so that now services can be provided. The families that you're dealing with in your clientele that ultimately can receive the services, for example, in this community in Addison, that they have available. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yes, that's really a big part of my role as a children's program coordinator, is to find out what are the resources and programs that could be beneficial to the families that I work with, specifically, of course, for their children. And so that's where my work with Addison School District and with the Apple Initiative came into being. I frequently connect families with childcare or get them, enrolled in school. We are able to connect them with enrichment activities that their children may never have been able to experience before, and just kind of let the children be children again and provide a sense of normalcy and stability to the family.
Which gets us out of the sleeping on the basement floor of the church illustration that you mentioned a moment ago, to provide them with services just like other families have, and kids get to be kids, and they have a place to do their homework, and they have resources available, and parents probably take a lot of peace in knowing that those services are available for their children.
Absolutely.
So, Mary, let's talk now about how did you find Bridge Communities? Because, as we say, they're a relatively new partner with the Apple organization, or did you find them, or was it kind of you found each other at the same time? How'd that work?
I think we kind of found Janet. Janet came to the school district to talk to the group of family liaisons in the school district. And Rosie Galvez, our family advocate, and I are part of that team. So as soon as I heard Janet talk about the scope of services and the approach they have and the care and respect and dignity that they provide their clients, I knew immediately that I wanted to follow up with Janet. So Rosie and I went and met with Janet to learn more about the work they do. And then, as I guess serendipity would have it, right around that time, one of the family child care providers that's a partner reached out to Rosie because she has a potential client that may be a fit and may need the services that Bridge Communities provides. So Rosie is working as a connector between that family and Bridge Communities right now.
Okay. Because again, and we've talked about this in the past, people need somebody to go to. The challenge is they just don't know who to go to. And in many cases, and I think this is a good example, a perfect example, there is a feeling of, I don't know what to do. I'm I'm really at a loss for trying to get help. I need it, but I just don't know where to get it from. And they're worried about that. And it sounds like because you have your foundation in Addison, Rosie, yourself, the family liaisons at District 4, you can make this as painless a project as possible, I would think. That's your ultimate goal, probably.
It is our ultimate goal. And the great thing is we're all out here building relationships with families and creating awareness, not just about Apple, but about our partners. So hopefully that makes people a little bit more comfortable in reaching out, and hopefully that helps us give people access to resources that they wouldn't have known about otherwise.
Right. Janet, when your position being the children's program coordinator, that puts you in a unique position and probably a very happy position, because you're working with the young people, like you said. These kids don't know. They don't know. They want to be kids, right? So who do you communicate with at Addison School District 4, for example? Is it the liaison team? Do you keep in touch with them to make sure that services are moving from the school district then over to the families, and you can act as a liaison then between the two? Is that sort of the approach that you're taking with that?
It is. We always start with the homeless liaisons in each of the school districts that we work with. And so, yes, if I have a family who moves into our apartment campus at Addison, that's my first question to them is, are you planning to transfer to the local schools? And I always encourage them to do that, because I feel like it's great for kids to go to their neighborhood school, to create relationships, to go to the library, the park district, things like that.
Be part of the community.
Exactly, just integrate with the community. And so I start by helping the parent get the child connected with registration at the school, which the liaison helps with. The homeless liaisons always ensure that the children are getting the free lunch, that all school fees are waived, which is a tremendous help and burden that these families sometimes don't realize they don't have to
And that
worry
system
about.
is in place. It's been in place for a long time, right?
Absolutely.
So this is nothing new we're talking about.
Right.
Good.
But then in addition, going forward, since Bridge Communities families are in our program for an average of about 2 years. So it's great because I really get to develop a relationship with those families over that time. And so every time I meet with the parents, we talk about how is school going, how are their grades, how are they participating in any extracurriculars, how are they feeling about school, are they making friends? And then I also check in with every teacher of every child in our program that I work with. So the parents, of course it's optional, the parents sign a release of information if they'd like to give me permission to do that. But I reach out to each teacher and introduce myself and explain that I'm working with this family, and just explain a little bit about what Bridge Communities is. And then I say, we do have tutoring that we offer through Bridge Communities. Do you feel like there's a need for that? How is the child doing? Are there any challenges that we can help with? And it can be something as big as, yes, they're struggling academically and they could use tutoring, or that this child might be in need of behavioral health therapy even. But it could even be something as seemingly small as, this child consistently forgets to bring a snack to school, and they're spending the morning hungry and I don't think they've eaten breakfast. And that allows me, when I know those things, to reach out and connect again with the parent and find out what's going on and potentially help them through just some of those everyday challenges that all of us as parents face and need to work through. But that it just takes some of the burden off of our Bridge Communities families. They know that they're not alone.
Right. You mentioned 25 apartment complexes?
Apartment buildings. Yes.
in DuPage County?
Yes, and they're clustered in campuses across 7 different towns.
Okay.
So that's great because it gives really a fun sense of community and like a neighborhood.
I was going to say, is there a positive to having it like that?
Absolutely, yes. Like for example, in Addison, we have 2 different buildings. They're right on the same street. Families know each other there. We recently had an event at the park right down the street from where our buildings are, where all the parents got to introduce each other, the kids got to play, and we talked about some of the parents who are more veterans of the program were able to share some advice, how things about like budgeting or just parenting or talking about, oh, have you been to the library here? It's great. Those kinds of things were great for some of the newer families to hear. So yes, the sense of community is huge. Again, many of these families have been moving from place to place, and they really have felt alone.
Yes.
And to know that they are not alone, they have peers that are doing the same program as them, is huge.
Do parents come to you with questions or issues about, what's my next step? What am I going to be doing next? And I know you offer transitional services as people depart your program, and that's probably their goal. I'm sure the parents, their goal is to be a graduate of the program, certainly.
Right.
But do you often find that those parents come to you with questions because it's, that's a big step for them. They've been used to being in the model that you have set up, but that's not going to be a long-term living situation for them. So
right.
Do you find that?
Absolutely. Well, luckily, I am there for, kind of the children's piece of it, but we have such a great team at Bridge Communities, not only of staff but also volunteers that we work with. So for each family, they have a children's program coordinator, which is me or a couple of my other colleagues.
Okay.
They also, each adult has a case manager who works with them. They also have an employment counselor if they want to do that.
Okay.
They need help,
Yes.
Getting a better job. And they also work with, very importantly, volunteer mentors. So how our program works is that Bridge Communities owns the buildings that the apartments are in, but partners like Faith Communities are actually providing the financial support for the families to be able to participate in the program and to be able to live in the apartments rent-free. Okay. And in addition to that wonderful support, they are providing volunteer mentors who meet with the families, with the parents once a week. And so they have 2 years to develop a relationship with these people. And the mentors and the clients work together on what is your plan. When you get close to the end of your program, let's talk about housing. And many of our families go on to be able to purchase homes. Some of them, go through Habitat Through Humanity. Some of them finish degrees while they're in our program and go on. I just was working recently with a couple of graduates. One is finished her teaching degree, and one is now a nurse. And they are able to do that because they have the support of these mentors, the volunteers, and then also the Bridge staff who is able to kind of provide like a holistic wraparound of support that they need during that time.
Well, we've talked about that, Mary, with the Apple organization. It's early childhood advocacy, but it's not we're not speaking only of children, and this is a really great example. You have to work with the entire family. You have to work with all involved. As Janet said, her concentration is more with the children, but it's a whole, as you said, holistic approach to that.
Yeah,
So
it's the whole family
must be
approach.
an awesome fit, really, for Apple to work with a
is.
group like this.
Yep,
locally.
it is. We're very excited about it.
Yeah. The idea of the transitional housing, will clients, as you said, go off into their own home or other living situation when they've completed it, typically 2 years, as you said?
Yes.
Do you ever do any follow-up with them?
Of course, yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yes.
I'm sure you do.
We definitely want to know.
Why wouldn't you?
Right?
Yeah.
We have a wonderful data team that works on data collection team that works at Bridge, and they that's their whole what they do all day every day is to look at the numbers and
Crunch the
find
numbers.
out what are we doing that's working, and they check with the clients who are currently in the program and also clients who are graduates, because they want to know. And even some clients, occasionally there's a situation where family just might not find that Bridge is a good fit for them, and they maybe don't make it all the way through the 2 years. But we want to know even from those people, what is it that has been a challenge. So we, through all of those, all that reporting process, we're able to look back at our programming and find out what is the right direction for us. But yes, absolutely, stable permanent housing is the goal.
That's the goal, right.
For graduation at the end of the 2 years. And that's kind of what we're all about, aiming from all of our different directions. That's what we're aiming for these families.
Do you get any grant funding or state funding for your programs?
We don't get very much state funding, but we do get grant funding. We also have grant writers on our team at Bridge, on our staff, who that's, again, what they're doing all day, every day, is writing tons of wonderful grants, trying to get, but we are primarily funded by private donations, which is amazing. And of course, we have another whole, our development team is constantly working on fun and new events that might draw in folks who have a heart for Bridge and who are able to help us.
Well, does it make it maybe more marketable then to the donors to say, you can be a part of this? You mentioned that you have members of the faith communities in DuPage County who act as your volunteer mentors.
Right.
And they've got skin in the game on this too, so they get to actually see. It's here, write a check and hand it over, and you never know what the results of that are. And this is quite a bit different because they can be a part of that.
Absolutely.
So is there maybe a little more something more desirable to bring people in, not only as a donor, as a funder, but also the many hands that you need to make this program work?
Right. We could not do it without the hundreds of volunteers and donors that we have, and they're both equally important. And we do have, some who have a heart for certain aspects of it. Some of our volunteers are former HR professionals, and they have been very involved in helping us run the employment workshops that the employment team does. We have some families we have actually some organizations that have come forward and said, we want to do something for the kids specifically. What can we do for the kids? So we've had companies who've gotten together and made care packages for all of our Bridge kids who are going off to camp this summer. Or, so many different creative ideas that people have. We have another group that put together employment packages for parents who are getting ready to go do interviews, where they have different things that they might need in files and things that they can help keep themselves organized. So depends. When donors come to us, we of course try to work with them to have them be involved in the way that they want to be involved.
Right. What would you say would be the challenges of our homeless population versus what Apple is doing in childhood advocacy? What are the things that you're trying to bring together? We have the homeless population 35 years ago when Mark and Bob founded Bridge, to where we're working today, very proactive, very holistic to the entire family. So where do you still want to see continued work in supporting those two coming together and making it for a successful family and children within the school community?
Well, I really felt like working with Apple was a perfect fit for Bridge Communities, because since they are an early learning community resource hub, and my job is about connecting families to resources, what better team would there be than I'm going to connect with all these resources. So while I'm still learning about all the specifics of what those resources are that are available, I think it would be great, for me to be able to offer things to my family, but also to help get the word out that, Bridge is also one of the resources. And if there are families in the Addison community and beyond, of course, in DuPage County that need us, that we are here. And you can connect with us through our intake phone number. So, and it's as simple as that, and we can take it from there. But there still are the continuing challenges that I feel like have always probably been for homeless families with connecting with early childhood resources, and that is transportation, available spots in high quality early childhood programs, and just kind of healthcare resources, so that if your child is not going to a regular, consistent pediatrician, maybe they're not getting those developmental screenings, and so the needs aren't being identified. Sometimes even if the needs are being identified, families that are homeless may not be able to get into one of the too few available spots that exist in lots of public early childhood programs. And those programs have been shown by research to really make a huge difference for those kiddos who are at risk, who can get into those programs. And then probably transportation would be, another big one. That's just,
It is
again,
big.
always been the case. If you're a family who's facing homelessness, you may very well not have a car, and so you can't even get to a preschool, or you can't maybe get to the pediatrician when you want to. And so that's probably one of our big goals is, and will always be, to see what we can do to build awareness that those are issues with the general public, to see what help is out there, but also to build awareness with the families that might need us, that we're here and we can help them to meet those challenges.
Well, Janet, thank you for filling us in and telling us about Bridge Communities. I was going to ask you, are Mark and Bob still in the area?
Bob is no longer with us, but
see.
Mark is retired now from Bridge, just in the last 3 years or so. But
Oh, wow.
he
Put in his time.
Honestly, it's his passion and it's his baby, and he will never not be involved with Bridge. He still comes to our events. He still speaks when asked to groups. He's the inspiration, and they both, I'm so thankful to them that they had that.
Sure. Think of the lives they've touched.
Oh my goodness.
Hundreds of
It's incredible.
lives, right?
It's unbelievable, yes. So they've made such a huge difference in the world,
Yeah.
really.
Well, there's two people who stepped up and took something under control, right?
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we need more volunteers like that.
We do need more volunteers like that.
This fits in well with Apple, as we've heard, as both you and Janet have explained. You must really be grateful that you have them now as part of your team.
Very much
of the
so.
collaborative. Mhm.
And not only because of what they could potentially offer some families, but even more so, I think what we can bring to Janet is knowledge about other partners and about other resources. So each of the relationships that we have with partners differs in terms of
Sure.
how they get a benefit from being part of our group. And I think in this case, while we might not be able to have dozens and dozens of families working with Bridge, because that's not applicable, we can certainly be helping Janet help families and help children. So that's extremely important to us.
Very good. Mary, talk about an event that's coming up in the early part of June.
Would love to.
And what's in store, and who is invited to attend this big extravaganza.
So Kindergarten Carnival is happening on June 2nd. It's going to be at Indian Trail Junior High, and there's going to be fun activities, there will be raffles, there will be other fun things for the kids to do, and it's for families who have a child that's going to enter kindergarten this coming fall.
Okay.
So
Great.
June 2nd in the late afternoon to early evening at Indian Trail.
Also a great opportunity to connect with Apple, I would imagine, in kind of a fun event, so
Absolutely.
that somebody could get information if they felt they would like
Somebody
to.
can get information about Apple, and then we'll also have several partners there and other
Okay.
resources. So a lot of resources to be found and connected with as well.
Very good. Well, Mary, thank you once again for the information on that, and for our guest, Janet Carlson, the Children's Program Coordinator with Bridge Communities. It's an inspiring story, and the lives that are being touched and helped by something that 2 volunteers in DuPage County got started is just amazing, something we can all learn from. Janet, Mary, thank you very much for being
Thank
with us
you.
today.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.